Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh. The Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Ripp. Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Ripp live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.
It's exciting that the business boutique was made for you.
I know that I can make a difference in people's lives, and I want to do that.
Hearing a lot of what other people are going through is really healing in a sense and motivating as well.
I have the world in my hand, and I can do whatever I want to.
Learning from some of the top leaders who can make these dreams a reality is just so exciting.
It ignited a passion in me to know she can do that, we can do that too.
I'm so blessed to have heard the podcast that led me to this moment.
Everyone, welcome to the Business Boutique Podcast. I'm Christy Wright, and today we're talking about busting the excuses that keep you from using your gifts. Now, we talked in the last episode about recognizing your gifts, but today I want to talk about some common excuses I hear that hold people back from using those gifts. Later on in the show, I'll be interviewing Amanda Wilcox Patterson, and she's here today to share with us about how to use your gifts. I'll also be answering some of your questions. But first, let's talk about these excuses. Now, if you guys remember way back during episode 1 of the Business Boutique podcast, we talked about using your strengths. And in this episode, I talked about learning at a very early age one particular thing that I was good at. I was good at running. I'm naturally athletic and I love to play sports and be outside and be really active in my life. Now, this has been true for my entire life. I've always been like this. But what's interesting is, even though I've always naturally been athletic, there have been times that I've been really scared to try a new sport. There was one experience my senior year of college that kind of stuck with me. One of the sororities at my college decided to put on a sprint distance triathlon. They were doing this to raise money for their charity. Now, for some reason, when I saw the information about this triathlon, I wanted to sign up so bad, but I was too scared to. I knew I was athletic and I could do a run or I could bike for a short distance of time. But the thing was, a triathlon is not just one sport or even 2. It's 3 sports, hence the name triathlon. You do those 3 sports back to back to back. You go swim for a certain distance and then you get out of the water and immediately jump on your bike and go bike for a certain distance and then immediately get off your bike and go run for the rest of the race. Now, any one of those things I probably could have done and survived, but the thought of doing all 3 scared the life out of me. But I had this itch. I really wanted to sign up. So even though I was too scared to sign up to do the whole thing by myself, I had a grand idea. I would just recruit 2 friends to do the race with me as a relay. Each of us would do one leg of the race. My good friend Jenny is an awesome swimmer and has always been a swimmer growing up, so she signed up for the swim leg. I was going to do the bike, and then my friend Michelle would do the run. So we agreed, even though we'd never done a triathlon in our lives, surely we could survive doing this one small portion of the race. So race day came. Jenny did the swim and did a fantastic job. I did my bike and survived it just fine. And then Jenny and I sat on the sidelines. We were sitting at the sidelines waiting to watch for our friend Michelle cross the finish line. We wanted to cheer her on for the very final leg of the race. But an amazing thing happened as we're sitting there. Now, keep in mind, I didn't sign up for this race because I didn't believe I could do it. I didn't believe that I had the endurance or the strength or the skills or the ability to complete 3 different sports back to back to back. So as I'm sitting there on the sideline watching the finishers come in, an amazing thing happened. Y'all, an 85-year-old man in a tutu crossed the finish line. Now, I'm sitting here watching this 85-year-old man in a tutu, which is clearly having a good time, and I can't help but think, what is my excuse? Like, this man that is 85 years old is having a good time and completing the entire race by himself, and I can't? And then a few minutes later, y'all, I promise you, a 6-year-old crossed the finish line. Now, I knew they did the whole race because if you're a relay participant, you have an R on the back of your leg. These guys, they didn't have an R. They completed the whole race by themselves. So I sat there in that moment and I looked at my friend Jenny and I said, are you kidding me? If they can do it, what are we waiting on? We're naturally athletic. We love to be active. And there's an 85-year-old man and a 6-year-old crossing the finish line by themselves. If they can do it, what's our excuse? Now, I'm happy to report that triathlon was the first triathlon I ever did, but it wasn't my last. Every triathlon I've done since then, with one exception, I've done by myself. I've even done Olympic distance triathlon, which are 3 times as long as that very first race. But I can trace all of that success and those fun experiences back to that day. Back to that day that I realized I didn't have an excuse. Whatever excuses I believed that were holding me back and keeping me literally and figuratively on the sidelines, they busted that day. So that's what I want to do for you today. I want to bust some excuses that you may be using that are holding you back from using your gifts in business. So here are the top 5 excuses I've seen in my coaching and experience with women in business. Excuse number 1 is this: I don't have any gifts. Okay, let's just have an honest moment. Yes, you do. You do have gifts. If you listened to the last episode, you know that our gifts come from many different places. You absolutely do have gifts. And not just gifts, you have unique, special gifts created just for you. You know, to be honest, when we sit here and say things like that, when we make the excuse, I don't have any gifts, not only is that not true and it's holding us back in business, but to be honest, it's a little bit insulting, I believe, to the God that gave us those gifts. It's kind of like when you have that teenager that is in this wonderful home and has everything he could ever need, and he goes to great schools and has clothes and all of his sporting equipment, and you have this wonderful life you've worked so hard to create for him, and he's like, my life sucks. I don't have anything. My friends have stuff that I don't have. How offensive is that to you, right? Like, you worked so hard to give him all of these gifts, this wonderful life, and he's sitting there and doesn't even acknowledge them. That's why I spent the entire last episode helping you recognize your gifts. Now, I don't think we do it on purpose, and maybe, to be honest, it comes from this place of wanting to be really humble. I'm so humble, I'm not good at anything. Now, here's the truth, friends. You're not doing anyone any favors by downplaying or dismissing your gifts. I want you to own them. I want you to recognize them. And more than that, I want you to use them. So let's go ahead and bust this excuse that you don't have any gifts, because you and I both know you do have gifts. You have things to offer the world, and you can make a difference with those gifts. So if you need a refresher, go back and listen to the last episode on how to identify and recognize your unique gifts. Now, the second excuse that I hear really often is, well, everyone can do that. Everyone has that gift. Or that's so common, it must not even be a gift. But here's the reality. No one has exactly what you have. They might have a similar strength. They might have a similar story or similar experience. They might have been through a similar situation. But no one has the exact combination of puzzle pieces that you do. No one has your unique voice. No one has your unique style. No one has your unique perspective that you bring to those gifts. So you might have 15 different people doing graphic design or doing fitness coaching, but they're going to all be different. Sure, it's a gift to have that skill, but how they do that work, the unique style and perspective that they use in their business as they use that gift is totally unique to them. So even if you look at other people that have similar gifts in terms of skills or strengths or one aspect of your gifts, they don't have every aspect of your gifts. Only you have that. They don't have what you have. They don't have that unique combination that was created just for you. So I want to go ahead and bust that myth, because if you think everyone can do it, you're wrong. Everyone doesn't have what you have. That's unique to you. Now, the third excuse I hear really often, and this is everywhere, I see this in every stage of business, is this excuse. Well, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to use my gifts. And the truth is this: you don't have time. You don't. You don't have time or not have time. We all get exactly 24 hours in a day, and you get to decide how you want to use that. So what you're saying when you say you don't have time is that it's not a priority, because you do have time. You have 24 hours that you could use your gifts. Now, if using your gifts is not a priority, that's cool. No big deal. It's not high enough on the priority list. That's totally your call to make. But let's not use the excuse that you don't have time as if you live your life passively and someone else is in control of your time. Because you and I both know there's one person in control of your time and your schedule, and that's you. You don't have time or not have time. You either make time for something or you don't. And if you don't want to make time for it, that's cool. But let's go ahead and call it what it is. That's not a priority right now. If it is a priority, then it's up to you to make time for it. Now, speaking of priorities, that brings me to excuse number 4. And I hear this pretty often as well. People say things like, oh, well, it's selfish to do what I love. Well, I get joy from it, so I shouldn't spend so much time doing that. I should serve others. Or I have more important responsibilities, so I don't have time for my gifts because those responsibilities, they have to be the priority. And what's interesting is excuse number 4 of thinking that your gifts are selfish actually plays into excuse number 3 of not having enough time. Because if you believe that using your gifts is selfish, then of course you're not going to make time for it. You're not going to make that a priority if you believe that it's selfish. Other things will be a priority. Serving others, your responsibilities, people-pleasing, doing what everyone else wants you to do. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I've noticed in coaching others is the most successful women in business and in life are those people that take care of themselves. The women that make themselves a priority are the ones that are able to give the most to others. Because here's the truth. You can't give something you don't have. You can't offer something you don't have. You can't lead someone where you are not. It all starts with you. So if you use your gifts and you invest in yourself and you use these outlets that bring you joy and give you energy and make you happy, then the byproduct of that is that you have joy to offer. You have love to give. You have energy for these other areas of your life because you invested in yourself. So I would say that it's not selfish to use your gifts at all. It's actually really smart. In fact, you are going to benefit others when you do so, not only through the use of your gifts, whether that's painting or sewing or coaching or designing or whatever service or product you have. Of course, you're going to bless those people and those customers that you're serving with those gifts, but I believe you'll bless your family as well. I believe you'll be a better wife and a better mom and a better friend when you use your gifts, when you do things that bring you joy and make you happy. And the 5th excuse that I hear is that no one needs my gifts. But you know what? That's really not your call to make. You don't know what people need or don't need. You're not in their minds and in their hearts. You don't feel their problems. The truth is, all you have to do is be faithful to what God's given you. He's given you a story and a perspective. He's given you strengths and talents and skills and situations that you can use to offer and bless those people. Maybe you plant some seeds and you never see the fruits of the seeds that you plant. Maybe this side of heaven, you'll never know the impact that you're making through using your gifts. Or maybe you will. Maybe you'll get feedback and testimonials through your business like we do with the Business Boutique of people that are having their lives changed because you're faithful to using your gifts. But at the end of the day, it's not your call to make on whether or not someone needs you. All you have to do is be faithful to using your gifts and let God use those to bless others the way that He wants to. But I'll tell you, I believe they do. I believe there are people that need what you have to offer. I don't believe that God went to the trouble to design you with unique gifts to be pushed to the back of your life to collect dust and be ignored forever. I don't think God would do that. I think He wants to use those gifts, and I believe it's because there are people out there that need you to, right now, today. So let's not let the excuse of no one needs my gifts hold you back. Instead, just be faithful to your gifts. Use them, and then sit back and watch what God might do with those. So maybe the excuses holding you back are some of the ones I mentioned, or maybe it's something else. But I hope that you find truth at the root of it. I hope you get to the root of that excuse and learn how to bust it and push past it so that you don't have any excuses holding you back from those unique gifts that God created for you. You guys probably have heard me talk about my husband and I's unique relationship before, but my husband and I are complete polar opposites. Like on every single personality profile, we are on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So I guess the whole opposites attract thing really does work because we make it work, but it is funny sometimes. I am extroverted. He's introverted. I'm highly emotional. He is zero emotions. I am energetic and enthusiastic, and he is steady as can be. And you see this play out in different areas of our life, but you definitely see it play out when it comes to giving and receiving gifts. I get really excited about giving gifts. In fact, I get more excited about giving gifts than I do receiving them. And that's not because I'm just so holy and I'm just so generous. It's because I just get so excited about the creative process behind dreaming up a gift. So a few years ago, I decided to go all out for my husband's 30th birthday. So in the weeks leading up to his birthday, I decided that I was going to get him 30 birthday presents. Now, before you fall on the floor, let me clarify. They weren't all big things. They certainly weren't all expensive things. It was just 30 thoughtful things. Some were small, some were big, some were an inside joke, some were things that were really practical that I knew he needed. Other things were things I just thought he might like. But I took these 30 presents and I wrapped them all individually. I wrapped them with brown packaging, tied them up with string, just like the sound of music, and labeled them with numbers. And then, on the night before his birthday, I displayed them in this huge, beautiful mountain on the dining room table. It had a big sign that said, "Happy 30th birthday, Matt," with all 30 presents towering over the kitchen table, all of them individually numbered. Now, I know my husband, and I know that he does not show emotions. But I would be totally lying if I didn't say I felt like this was going to do it. Like this might make him do some back handsprings, do some cartwheels across the living room, jump up and down with excitement. I thought, how could you not? Like this is an awesome birthday present. And what a great surprise that he has no idea is coming when he wakes up. So of course, the next morning, I set my alarm really quiet, but loud enough for me to hear it. I woke up, got my coffee so I could sneak downstairs before him, had everything displayed beautifully, and then I waited. I waited until that moment when he was going to come down the stairs, come around the corners, and his eyes were going to lock in on this amazing birthday display. So, of course, I had to wait about 20, 30 minutes, and then he came down the stairs. I heard his footsteps coming around the corner. I stood up in anticipation, waiting for the response, waiting for my husband, who I know shows no emotion, that is surely going to freak out at his gifts. He comes around the corner, and this is what he says. "Well, what do we have here?" Y'all, that was it. That was a victory. That was my husband at his most excited. Now, I know you find this hard to believe. I do too. I get excited because it's a random Tuesday. But my husband, he's different. You know, he loved the presents and he opened them and he was very, very thankful. And he showed excitement in his way, in his personality style. But I can't help but think of how different it might have been if he walked by and didn't notice the presents. What if he walked right by? What if he walked right by those gifts and didn't even see them? And then maybe, what if I pointed them out and I said, "Hey, babe, there's birthday presents for you." And he said, "Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I don't really think those are gifts. They just look like brown shipping boxes, but I'll come back to them later." I was like, no, they're really gifts. They're things you're going to love. They're things that are going to make you happy and bring you joy. And he's like, "Well, I'll get to them later. I'm actually really, really busy. I've got to go to a meeting. And then I'm going to go work out." And then throughout the day, he continued to bypass the gifts. He didn't see them. He didn't recognize them. He didn't appreciate them. And he was too busy for them. Friends, I can't help but think if that isn't how God feels when we miss out on the gifts he's given us, the desires and passions and talents that we were created for. I wonder if he isn't saddened when we're too busy for our love of painting or our gift of writing, or our talent of sewing, or our passion for running, or our desire to make music. I wonder if he isn't baffled that we believe we are too busy with so many important things that we completely miss out on the gifts he's given us, the gifts he created us for, the gifts he wants us to share with others. I believe that God created you and I for more than laundry and errands and tasks completed, for more than checklists checked off and meals prepared and a house that's cleaned. He created you, dare I say it, for more than being a wife and mom. He created you with a set of gifts and strengths and passions and talents. He created you with gifts uniquely and specifically for you. He created you with skills that, though they take work, give you energy. He created you with desires that make you come alive. He created you with passions that bring you joy. When you spend time enjoying your gifts, everyone benefits when you allow yourself to fully be the woman God created you to be. Several months ago, I was at church one day and I was sitting there in the seat watching one particular woman during worship. She was leading the worship for this room of over 1,000 people, but my eyes were locked on her. She had her hands raised and her voice was absolutely extraordinary. As she stood there, singing with her hands raised and praising, I saw God. Now, I know that may sound cheesy, but that's actually what happens when you use your gifts. Women, when you use your gifts, it's not just about you. It's not even just about your customers. People see God. I love the verse in Matthew that talks about this. It says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Women, do you understand the implication of this? When you shine in your gifts, people will see God. To be honest with you guys, helping women use their gifts is exactly why I wrote my book, Business Boutique. Now, the tagline is A Woman's Guide for Making Money Doing What She Loves, and that's exactly what it is. But it's also to equip you to do exactly what we're talking about, to use your gifts. Now, I'm really excited because if you didn't know, it is actually available right now for pre-order. You can order your copy at businessboutique.com for only $20. But here's the thing. You get $60 in extra free bonus items. You get the audiobook, the ebook, and you get my Marketing Basics DVD and download. But that's not all, because you know that I have an offer just for you, my podcast listeners. If you visit businessboutique.com/bbbook and use the code BBBOOK, you'll receive an exclusive podcast interview with my friend and sales expert, Nicole Walters. Nicole will help you learn how to sell with confidence. And the only way to get this interview is by buying the book on pre-order. Now, that's pretty cool because it's not only going to help you with your business through the book, but you also get help with your sales. Now, guys, I do want you to know that there's only a few weeks left to pre-order your book where you get the $60 in free bonus items. So don't miss out on your chance to get $60 worth of stuff totally for free when you get your Business Boutique book. So order your copy today using the code BBBOOK. And to give you a little sample now, you can actually start reading the book for free and get the first 2 chapters. Go to businessboutique.com/book to start reading today. Now, you guys, I'm so excited about this next interview because I have a little surprise for you. The story that I just told you about the beautiful woman worshiping on stage, where I literally saw God in her, I have her with me. Her name is Amanda Wilcox Patterson, and she is a friend of mine that I actually met several years ago in a women's small group. But I'm so excited because we've kept in touch, and she's here today to share with us about how to use your gifts. Amanda, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm so excited you're here because I was just talking to our listeners about a story that I experienced, and I'm not even sure if you know the full story, but I was at church one day, and this was like a year ago. I mean, it was a long time ago, and I was up, in the top section, way far away from the stage. But I just remember seeing you on stage, and I've known you obviously for a while, going back from our book club and leadership group. But you were on stage and you were leading worship, and I was just so captivated in that moment of watching you use your gifts. And there was this moment where I just realized, I really felt like in that moment, I got to see God. I got to see the Lord in you and you stepping into your gifts. And it was this powerful moment that's really stuck with me. And it taught me something, because a lot of the women that I work with, they feel like using their gifts is selfish, or using your gifts is self-serving, or it's not a priority. There's other things more important. We've got to do laundry, right? Like we've got to do errands. We've got to do all this other stuff. Like using my gifts is not a priority. But in that moment, it really stuck out to me that watching you on stage, using the gifts God's given you, I got to experience God and see God. And there was something very powerful about that moment that impacted me. And I can't even imagine how many other people have been impacted by you using your gifts. But I'd love to just start by you telling me a little bit about what it's like from your perspective to stand on a stage or be in front of a microphone or record a song and to use your gifts, and what that's like for you to do that courageously and confidently.
Yeah. I started leading worship probably about 6 years ago, and it's something that I never wanted to do. And it sounds very weird, but my dad is a worship leader. I grew up basically on a pew my whole life. And I think it was something that I had these preconceived notions of what being a worship leader had to be. And it had to be, this very cookie cutter thing. And I remember when I got up on stage the first time they asked me to lead, I was kind of like stumbling over my words a little bit and over myself, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing. And I remember somebody sat me down and he said, I just need you to know that right now it's not about the people, it's not about the stage, it's not about the way you sound, it's not even about what you sing, it's the fact that you are worshiping. And that's what you need to focus on. And so you need to give everything that you have every single time that you get up there, because it's about the worship. And it's about your experience with God in that moment. And I was like, oh, well, okay. That is totally different than everything that I grew up with. And my dad is an incredible worship leader, but it's all about the rigorous process. Like, it doesn't seem like it's even an enjoyable thing sometimes for him. So when I started doing that and started realizing in this moment, when I'm worshiping, I'm connected to the Lord more than probably most times in the day. It started becoming this beautiful, passionate, enjoyable process for me. And I ended up to be able to teach a class on how to lead worship. And when I got done, I looked at the whiteboard and I realized that I didn't ever teach them anything that's probably very, very useful for them. But basically, I just said, the more connected you are to Christ, the better worshiper you are. And I think that's true literally no matter what you do. The more connected you are to Christ, the better dentist you're going to be, the better entrepreneur you're going to be, the better closet organizer, the better, no matter what it is. If Christ is your focus, he uses anything to worship him. And I used to think that creativity was only certain things, but he says creativity is doing what I ask you to do. Creativity is doing exactly what you've been called to do and doing it with gladness and with passion, and that's what gets people on board. It's not just you doing it with your own might. And yes, I do live in my giftings and I know where God has called me to, but I only know where God has called me to because he is my center and my focus.
I love that example, and something you just said that you kind of hinted at, but I want to say explicitly that just occurred to me. And as soon as I was starting to think about this as you were talking, I had to fight back the tears. You literally worship, you lead worship and you lead singing and music, and that's your gifting. You're a beautiful singer, and you do an incredible job of leading the church of any size through that. But what kind of jumped out to me as you were talking, Amanda, was when we are in our gifts, we are worshiping. And it's how beautiful that is, that God has created you with these gifts. He created uniquely you with these gifts in mind, created these gifts with you in mind, and that when you are stepping into your gifts, to your point, as a dentist, as a closet organizer, as a business coach, as a florist, as an accountant, you are worshiping. And it's the verse of you are doing your work as unto the Lord. It's not just connecting with God. It's not just serving people or a ministry, which we talk about a lot through the Business Boutique, but it is actually you worshiping. Yes. And I had this moment, which this sounds silly, but this is such a random example that I think is a good example of what we're talking about. One day, I went for a run. This was years ago, but it just stuck with me. And I was out at Shelby Park, out at the Greenway, and it was just me. And I went for a run. This was before kids, when I had lots of free time to just go for a run one afternoon. But I went out there, and I just had a really hard week, and it had been going through a tough season. And the leaves were starting to change, and it was really beautiful. And I didn't have headphones or any music in. And I had this thought, God, I love being outside, just enjoying your creation. And I felt God say to me, I'm going to get choked up talking about this. I felt God say, I'm enjoying watching you, my creation. And it was this moment of just, if we could understand how uniquely we are created with these gifts to use for others, to connect with God, to your point, but also as an act of worship, how powerful that would be, but how much that would change how we approach our business, how we approach anything that we do. Because I don't think we would ever have guilt if we could look at it from that perspective. We would never feel bad about stepping on a stage to sing, or stepping on a stage to speak, or showing up to your office, or doing the thing that God's calling you to do, to your point, because you realize that it's coming from that place. And it totally changes your mind about it, right? Have you experienced that in not only worshiping, but everything that you're doing in terms of using your gifts?
Absolutely. And I think if we look at it literally just the exact same way that you were talking, is God is literally smiling down on us because we're choosing to worship him in everything that we do. It takes so much pressure and so much shame if we don't get it perfect off of us. Because that's something, too, that I was constantly focusing on the outcome, constantly focusing on what I sounded like and what I did. And it was just so liberating and just such an awesome, beautiful process to be able to just say, God, I have passion for you. I'm just going to give it. Whatever that sounds like, whatever that looks like, I'm just going to try. I'm just going to give and have faith that you are going to use it however you need to. And I think that's the liberating process, is that he takes that passion and he loves it. And it's just this beautiful process of him being able to liberate our hearts, to be able to give unconditionally, because he's the one that's receiving and he's also the one that's giving.
Yes. And what a powerful strategy for combating fear, because fear is a big thing that really a lot of us struggle with. I got booked recently to speak on the Propel events with Christine Kane this fall, which is just a huge honor. I'm going to be with Beth Moore and these like unbelievable speakers. And my very next thought, Amanda, as soon as I found out, was like, I'm so excited. Oh, crap. I was like, my very next thought was, who are you? You know, those thoughts. Who are you to stand on this stage? You can't hang with Beth Moore. Like, who are you kidding? And then after that, I had the thought of exactly what you're saying. I was like, no. If I got booked to speak on this stage, it is because God has something to say to these women.
Yep.
I just get to be a part of it. So it's like, to your point, the pressure's off. Like, it's not that I'm not going to prepare. I will prepare. But it's not on me to be the brightest, most brilliant, most perfect, best looking, all these things that we get focused on. He booked me because he has something to say, and he's going to give me the words to say. Now, Amanda, I know that you have shared your story in several different capacities, but I would love it, as much as you're comfortable, to share a little bit about your story, because you have this incredible story of perseverance and triumph and faith. And I'd love for you to share a little bit of that story with our audience and some of the things that you're learning through this journey about your relationship with God, and certainly using your gifts in the context of that.
Yeah. My story is a colorful one. In October of 2014, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And then a month later, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And then over the next year, I went through 8 months of chemo, 6 weeks of radiation, 6 surgeries. And I also met my now husband 3 weeks before I got diagnosed. We basically had our whole relationship while I was asleep, while I was at surgeries, and it was a whirlwind. And we got married 3 weeks after I found out I was cancer-free in 2015. And to say that I've seen God's glory would be the understatement of the century. And I know that sounds crazy, but before I got diagnosed, I subconsciously had built this whole wall, this whole ship of feeling like I was protected. I would build walls every time I got hurt by something and believed that I was riding through life totally oblivious. Nothing could hurt me. I'm fine. I'm amazing. And then literally as soon as I got diagnosed, I felt like that ship that I had built around myself crashed into a million pieces. And I was exposed and vulnerable, and I feel like I fell to the bottom of the ocean, and I was so alone in the blackness and the darkness, and I didn't know what to do, and I felt totally alone. And all of a sudden, God met me at the bottom, and he said, finally, you're vulnerable. Your walls are down. I did not cause cancer, but you know what? I'm going to use it for my glory, and I'm going to use it to save you, because you need saving from yourself. Your emotions, your spirituality, all of that needs to be better. And finally, I get the chance to help you do that, to help you keep growing, to help you be more. And so God healed me in those areas way before he healed me physically, which was not my preference.
Right, sure.
I would much rather been healed at the very beginning and had this beautiful story of being able, oh, God healed me and it was so amazing. The crazy part is he did heal me. But he healed me in all the ways that I actually needed it a lot more than I did physically. And I think we end up switching churches about a year ago, right after I got done with all my treatments. And it's interesting because when you called, I had this epiphany that I'm not leading worship at a church right now. And I've been having this hard time and going back and forth. And I remember standing at church last week, because the church I am, they have their worship leader and they don't want more, but I feel called to this church. And I remember thinking, God, I know this is my gifting. I know that I'm supposed to be here. What is your plan? What is your purpose for this? And I remember sitting there in the audience and him saying, if you can't worship me and give me my gifts here, you can't do it on a stage. So you need to be willing and able to worship and to give wherever you are, whether that's a stage or whether you're at home or whether, wherever that is. And so I think that's kind of where I am now, is learning to worship God in the good, learning to worship him in the bad. I've learned to worship him in the chaos and the crazy, and now I need to learn to worship him in the peace.
It's so good. And I think it's just so easy, especially if you're a person of faith, to say, oh, yeah, I trust God. But do you? Because it's not until you're at the bottom, and that way you're forced to, or you have no options, where your fingers are pried off the steering wheel of your life, and you truly have to trust him because you can do nothing about your situation, to your point. Like, you're not in control at all. And then it's like a different level of trust. You're like, oh, I have no choice but to trust in this situation because I've lost all options. I've lost all control. I've lost everything that I normally manipulate and predict and schedule and plan. It's like I'm in this place of complete and total utter dependence, which, you know, when you're in the moment, feels like God is a mean God. But if you think about it in hindsight, or even if you can gain some perspective to realize that the very best place in the whole world we can be is as close to the Father as possible. And there's no place that we're closer to him than in complete utter dependence. He's actually doing us a favor to get us to these dark places, because that's where we're the closest to him. You know, it's just such a great testimony of your example, and the fact that you were able to learn from that, and how your faith is so different now. And I love the example of what you were talking about, where you're saying the season of life where you are right now and what it looks like to use your gifts, because I thought, you know, there's probably a lot of people listening that they might be very used to using their gifts in a certain capacity. You know, we actually interviewed Annie Downs on the last podcast, and she and I are buddies as well, and we were talking to her about using her gifts, and she was saying how she used to use her gifts in a certain capacity as a teacher, and she's still using those same gifts, but in a different capacity. And to your point, Annie has gone from a school classroom to a huge platform, and you kind of gone from a huge platform to sitting in the pew, you know, and worshiping. And I just think there's something so powerful about the context of looking at those two stories, which we didn't plan, obviously, but hearing you and the visual of the impact is no less when you're not on a stage. Like, there's still something so powerful about a woman using her gifts, a woman worshiping, a woman using the gifts that God created you with to worship the one who gave them to you. And regardless of if you're in a spotlight or in a pew or cleaning bathrooms or watching your kids or making meals or doing bookkeeping for someone behind a computer, when you're using your gifts, whether people see it or not, how powerful that is. And so I think that's a great example, even looking at your season of life now, you know, where you are. That visual that you just gave of this ship, you know, and kind of like crumbling, I felt like it was really powerful, and I couldn't help but think, I bet there are listeners that are there right now. You know, they're listening and they've got tears streaming down their face, and they're going, Amanda, that is my ship. Like, I'm at the bottom of the ocean. What would you say to them, for someone that's in that place of darkness right now, being where you are now, looking back and feeling healed, but to someone who's right there in the valley?
I would say that you're not by yourself. And it feels like you are, and it feels like there's no one else and there's nothing else, but you're not by yourself. And I literally had this whole vision, and I was in the middle of my 3rd chemo treatment. I was so angry and so mad that I was crying out desperately for God to heal me, and he wasn't doing it. And so I remember just being angry and mad. I was at the bottom of this ocean, and I just had this vision, and God just showed up right next to me. And we didn't move. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't do anything. He just laid there right next to me, and I was just angry. And I just told him all the things that I was angry about and all the things that I was mad about. And all of a sudden it was better. And not because my situation had changed, but because I had changed a little bit. Being able to be honest and have that relationship and have that actual conversation with God changed my heart to be able to say, okay, like, now I'm not alone. Let's start walking up. And so the Lord grabbed my hand, and I just somehow stopped drowning. In the middle of the biggest situation where I should have been drowning, I stopped drowning, and it was because I stopped doing it myself, and I let go, and I just said, okay, like, I can't be in control here, although I am a control freak. I like to be in control of absolutely everything all the time. I like to know what's happening and when and what time. Cancer doesn't care how much you like to be in control. It says, I'm here, I'm not leaving until I'm leaving. And although that part was so hard, it was the first time in my life that I got to let go and I got to not be in control. And it was so liberating to be at the bottom and to be completely exposed, and God to say, okay, don't worry. I've got it. I'll take it. I'm going to take it from here. You just let go. And so, I mean, that's kind of what I would say is I get it. I understand. it's time to let go.
Amanda, I would love it if you would give our listeners just a little bit of advice in terms of some ways that you have been able to combat your fear when it comes to using your gifts, because that is something that holds us back. Even if we know we're talented, you know you're a talented singer, you know God has gifted you in this way, but that doesn't mean that the process is easy or fast or fearless. You know, there's still fear associated. So what are some tips or encouragement you could give our listeners of combating fear when that creeps up? You know, because the enemy wants you not to. He wants to be like, who are you to sing? Who are you to teach women about business? You know, and so how do you work around that?
I think we have to remember that first and foremost, we are human. We're never not going to be human. And I think when we look at fear, it is not something I think that God originally created us to feel or to be a part of. But it is something that's always going to be a part of our lives. And I still, anytime I sing on stage, anytime I speak, anytime I do anything, I still have fear. And I think I accept it and I understand, okay, I'm afraid of this. And I'm afraid of this because it's something awesome. And I'm afraid of it because God is going to absolutely use me and to change lives and to be a part of this. And I'm afraid of it because it's awesome.
Because it matters.
Because it matters.
Yes.
Because it's unique and it's going to change not just them, but it's going to change me. And so it's a beautiful fear. And so I accept the fact that I'm afraid. I accept the fact that I'm afraid because it's something more. And I want something more. And I think when you let fear keep you from doing something, that is the enemy. When you let fear drive you to do something more, that is Christ saying, I'm taking your humanity and I'm making you better.
That's good. I love that example where you said, I see it as fear means it's because it's awesome. Because when you think about it, you're only scared because you care.
Yeah.
Right? Like you care about the outcome. If you didn't care, if you're like,
wouldn't be afraid.
Whatever,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be afraid,
Yeah.
right? You're afraid because it matters so much.
Yeah.
It matters to you, which is tapping into, to your point, there's something on the line.
Yeah.
And if there's if you're feeling a lot of opposition, if you're feeling a lot of negative thoughts or doubt or, you know, what if you do it? What if you fail? Who are you to do this? That's not from God. That's not the voice of God. He doesn't say those things. Like if you tune into his radio station, that's not what he's talking about.
Right.
And this is different than a logical conviction or this is wisdom of, you know, well, this isn't the right season for you or,
Right.
you know, because fear never says that. It's always
Right.
these worst case scenarios. And I think you make such a great point that when you start to see it for what it is, okay, I'm scared out of my mind. And I can't even explain why. I just know I'm petrified. It's because there's something on the line. There's something to be won or lost. And it's because it's going to be awesome. And, you know, as humans, I'm sure, you know, most of you listening have learned about this in grade school growing up of all humans have a fight or flight reaction to something threatening. So if it's a fire, if it's a monster, if it's a bear, whatever, we have this fight or flight. We're either going to fight and try to survive, or we're going to flee the situation. And so what I see a lot of times is women in business, they flee.
Yeah.
They shut down. They say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm scared. It's a bad sign. I shouldn't do the thing. And so instead, I want them to fight. Like to your point, I want them to step into it. Be like, I always say this. I say, don't wait until you're not scared to do the thing you want to do. Do it scared. Walk on the stage while you're scared. Post the blog while you're scared. Launch the product. Ship the thing while you're scared. Just do it scared. And I love your example of it's because it's going to be awesome. It's like we all want something awesome.
Yeah.
So let's just start to see your fear as this motivator. Like, oh, yeah, this is a good sign. This is affirmation. I'm on the right track
Yeah.
because something matters.
Yeah.
Something's on the line. Well, Amanda, as we wrap up, I would love it if you would tell us how people can connect with you because there are some
sure.
people listening that I'm sure have been moved by your story. They would love to reach out to you, learn more about your journey, or even ask you questions. So how can they follow you or connect with you?
Sure. On social media, pretty much everywhere, Amanda Wilcox Patterson. Okay. They can search me Instagram, Facebook. I even have Twitter. I don't think I use it that much, but I have it just in case. And then I have an email. It's info@amandawilcoxpatterson.com. Email me anytime. I get probably 20 or 30 emails a day from people who've been diagnosed, from people who are going through, you know, a really hard time or they have symptoms that they don't know about. And I try to remind people, I'm definitely not a doctor.
But I'm here to encourage you.
I'm here to encourage you to go to one. But I honestly, that is the most amazing part of it to me is that God has given me a platform not to talk about myself, but to get to help people and to get to show people, okay, you may not be in the best situation right now, but guess what? You have joy because you have God. And you may be in the midst of a storm, and it could be really, really terrible, the worst you've ever experienced. But again, that means that it's awesome. That means that God is getting ready to change your entire life because you can't be in the midst of a storm and not be changed. It's just not possible. Coming from someone, I have done music. I did it full time for 10 years and I quit my job because God called me to. I think the biggest thing that I want to remember and understand from the very beginning is that Christ is the center. He always has to be the center. And the minute it becomes about you and how amazing you are and how amazing you're doing, the center starts to shift and the focus starts to shift. And I think it's amazing that despite us, God still uses us and still uses our gifts and our passions. You know, no matter what it is, Christ is the center. Continue to run after him hard with everything that you have. Do what you have with passion because he's called you to it. And don't think that whatever it is that you're doing, that you're not where God has you. I think it's hard to remember that sometimes we need to do what we need to do in order to get where we need to get. And I'm remembering that for myself, and I wanted to remember that during the process. I mean, even to pursue my dream, I had to do part-time jobs here and there. I had to do small things here and there to get where I needed to go, and I think that's okay.
Sure.
I think not expecting to be where we want to see ourselves 10 years down the road is a huge deal. Not that God can't take us there or that he won't, but understanding that God has you right where he wants you, and he will take you where he needs you to go.
So good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Amanda, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, let's hear from a woman who stopped letting her hesitation hold her back and started working in her gifts.
Okay, so I'm Kelly, and my business is The Simply Organized Teacher, and my goal is to help teachers keep their classrooms organized and managed so that they can run smoothly and that the kids feel comfortable in them.
Meet Kelly Buckteen. She's the owner of The Simply Organized Teacher.
I'm a teacher. This is my 5th year teaching, and I've always been really organized. People are always complimenting me on my classroom, and it's always been something that I've thought, I would love to be a professional classroom organizer. Like, that would be my dream goal. But my mind has always said, well, who's going to pay for that? Teachers can't afford to do that. And so it's been something I've kind of just pushed off. And I even went as far as trying to start another business, and my passion wasn't really there. And so I kind of just dropped it.
Kelly is a starter, and about a year ago, she attended a business boutique event in Fort Worth, Texas.
I left feeling spiritually empowered. Yes, I got a lot of practical, here's how you make your business plan and here's ways to do social media. And I got those and I think about those often. But I think more than anything, I left, I can do this. I can do whatever I want. I have a desire and a dream to do something with my life bigger than being a classroom teacher. And I know that that's a big task, but I left feeling like whatever dream I have, I can make it happen. So that's kind of what Business Boutique was for me. I left very spiritually empowered.
Coming out of that event, Kelly had a dream to work in her gift of organization.
I've always thought, I want to do this, but nobody's ever going to pay for it. And then I kind of just, that night driving home, it sounds so movie driving home in the rain and all these thoughts. But I thought, okay, this is a dream I have. This is obviously a gift that God has given me. So I'm going to pursue it. And if I fail, I fail. But I'm going to fail if I don't try it, and this is something I'm passionate about, which is kind of what I feel like Business Boutique is really, their passion is to make us be passionate about what we're doing. And then they give us tools to help us along with that.
Once Kelly got past her fear and began using her gifts, everything clicked. She finally felt passion for her business.
Towards the beginning of this school year, I posted on a Facebook group, hey, who needs help organizing their classrooms? Let me know, I'll come help you. And one girl reached out to me and I went and helped her, and I really enjoyed it. I got paid to do it, which was really exciting. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now and how I've gotten started. And I've just decided that this is a gift of mine. It's something that I'm obviously successful in, I'm good at. So I'm going to try and pursue it as a business, and we'll see where it goes. Since then, I've met with my principal, who has been really supportive of me and is giving me some opportunities to help teachers in our school. And I sent out an email. I've already had 6 teachers email me back, hey, I need your help. Can you come help me? So I'm excited about that.
Kelly has set goals and is achieving them.
I've always had a blog, but my first goal was to create a full website where my blog is housed. And so I did that. So check that off the list. My next goal is to start a podcast where I'm interviewing teachers, and I want it to be just very conversational and, hey, let's talk about teaching. It's not super like formal. And then, I think if I'm dreaming big, I would like to step out of the classroom and help other teachers become more organized and manage their classrooms well. Hopefully that's where I'll be. That's what I want. That's what I see.
When we talked to Kelly, she was back at the Business Boutique event in Nashville, Tennessee. She's growing with her business in new ways, and she's learning new things every single day.
This Business Boutique, I feel like I'm learning more practical stuff, like steps to take to make my dreams happen. Like last time was a lot of spiritual empowerment. This time is a lot of like, well, here's something I can do on social media to help with that, or here's ways to sell myself and sell my services. Being passionate about what I'm doing and what I'm selling, because I think if you're passionate and people buy into that, then they'll want to buy what you're selling.
Wow, what a great story. If you want to learn how to stop letting fear hold you back like Kelly did, we have 2 Business Boutique one-day events left this spring. One on April 19th in Atlanta, Georgia, and the other one on April 21st in San Antonio, Texas. This event will give you all the essentials you need to start or grow your own business. It features me and Dave Ramsey. We created this convenient local event so you can experience the Business Boutique movement in your community. Now, if you want to attend our Business Boutique one-day event, we have a special code for you, our podcast listeners. You can get $5 off any ticket to the Business Boutique one-day events by going to businessboutique.com and using the code BBWright. That's BBWRIGHT, and you'll get $5 off any ticket to our one-day events. I can't wait to see you there. Now, I want to dive into the portion of our podcast where I answer your questions. This week, I have a few questions that you sent to my email address, podcast@businessboutique.com. So the first question is from Jessa. Jessa writes, "Hello, I'm a graphic designer by trade. I've done a wedding stationery as a favor for some of my friends, and I really love doing it. I want to turn it into a side business. I do high-end custom work and really take pride in the amount of detail that goes into each set. How do I find my price point when others in my field don't list their prices on their websites? Thanks. I can't wait for your book." Jessa, thank you so much. I can't wait for my book either. I'm excited for it to come out. Well, I'll give you a couple tips. Number 1, just call them. You give them a call and ask them what their prices are. They don't know you're a competitor, and you could innocently call without misleading anyone and simply ask what their rates are. When you do this, you'll have a good baseline for what your competitors are charging. But another tip for you is to actually go back and listen to episode 4 of the podcast. In that episode, I walk through all of the variables to consider when setting your price range in your business. Now, researching your competitors is one of those variables, but there are also several others that you want to take into account when setting your price point. So I want you to listen to episode 4 to get a refresher on what those variables are and start there. Now, my last tip for you is to actually use our Profit Potential app. Profit Potential is a calculator that we designed as a tool for you to use in your business, and it is specifically to help you with pricing and profitability. All you have to do is go to businessboutique.com and type in your email address, and then you answer a few basic questions about your business. When you do this, it shows you a snapshot report of all of the most important numbers in your business. It shows you your top line revenue, how much to save for taxes, what you're spending in your cost of goods and overhead costs, and shows you even how you can adjust these numbers in real time to increase your profitability. So I'd like you to go ahead and use that calculator, because I promise you it will give you the numbers you need to start working on your price, and it will help you refine it to make sure you get to that sweet spot of the perfect price range. Great question, Jessa, and I hope those resources help you. Now, our next question comes from Casey. Casey says, "Hello, I will hopefully be certified as a health coach after I take my test in April. I'd like to own a business one day, helping others lose weight, eat healthier, and have an all-around healthy lifestyle. My question stems from fear. I'm scared that I will not have all the answers for my clients and that I won't be able to help everyone who comes to me for my help. Is there any advice or encouragement that you can give me? Thanks." Casey, that is such a common question, and I appreciate you asking it, because I promise you there are people listening right now thinking, yes, I have the same concern. Here's the thing. You won't always have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. You learn the most by doing. So I want you to get out there and get moving. As you gain experience, as you help people, you learn and grow. And then over time, after a year or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, you gain more and more experience and more knowledge that you offer your clients. But here's the thing. You're going to be charging a lot more in 3, 5, or 10 years for your services because of that experience that you bring to your clients. Right now, you might not charge as much starting out of the gate. You're new. You're just getting your feet wet in this business, and that's okay. Your clients will understand that. I will tell you one tip that I have learned. If someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer, I want you to own it and then follow up by telling them you'll find the answer. So oftentimes I'll get asked in a coaching session about some specific detail about business licenses or food safety regulations in a particular state. And what I'll say is exactly that. You know what? I don't know that answer, but I'm going to find out for you. When you do that, you're humble, you're honest, and you're also willing to work hard to get them the answer that they need. And I promise you, all of those qualities are qualities that people respect and appreciate in a coach. So don't feel bad if you don't have all the answers. You can find the answers for your customers, and you can be honest about that up front. But the truth is, you're going to learn the most by being out there on the front lines doing it. You can't gain experience unless you get started and get that experience. So I encourage you to get moving and don't let that fear hold you back, because I promise you, you have something to offer right now. Great question, Casey. Now, if you have a question about something we've talked about here on the podcast or anything about your business, I want to hear from you. You can send me your questions via Twitter and Facebook by using the hashtag AskChristyWright. We've also set up a group in the Business Boutique community at businessboutique.com called hashtag AskChristyWright, where you can send me your questions and interact with the rest of the women there. So send me your questions because I want to hear from you. Now, your homework for this episode is a little different from the last episode. In the last episode, I asked you to write down what your gifts are. This episode, I want you to write down why using those gifts is important. Write down all of the people and situations and things that can benefit from you using your gifts. How is it going to benefit others? Why is it a good idea? Why should using your gifts be a priority in your life that you actually make time for? When you put this on paper and you see it in front of your eyes, I think it'll give you the confidence to not only use those gifts more, but to do it in a way that you're actually proud of and feel good about. So that's your homework for this week. I want you to write down why using your gifts is important. Well, that's it for now. Thanks so much for hanging out with me as always. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. For more encouragement on how to make money doing what you love, visit businessboutique.com.
Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh, the Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Rip, Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Rip live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.